Good evening. You may notice that I am not at the church this evening. I'm instead recording this from home. As I'm sure you heard by now, that Governor Evers on yesterday, announced a safer at home procedure to keep us all safe at home and avoid making any unnecessary journeys outside of our home. So tonight, I am modeling for you, as a good, responsible citizen, what it looks like to continue sharing a devotional practice from home. And this is one that you can use with your families. We're not going to be doing Holden evening prayer, unfortunately. I just do not have the capacity to do that from my own home at the moment. There are lots of other really great Holden evening prayer videos available online, and there are lots of other churches that are continuing to do Holden evening prayer together. So I can find some links for that for you to follow along at home if that's something that you so choose. But for us, instead, I decided that for these midweek devotional times together, that we are going to follow along with a devotional plan that some of my colleagues put together in just like 24 hours when we realized that we were all going to have to be staying at home during this time. And it's really great. I've shared it on the Facebook page already. It's pinned to the top of the page. It's called A Devotion for Hope in a Time of Pandemic. And we're going to be following along with that tonight. And hopefully, if you all like it, we can continue to do that in the weeks ahead. I'll continue doing these midweek evening worship services together, devotion times together, for as long as we are in this time of pandemic together. So not just during the official time of Lent, but for the rest of our wilderness journey together, I'll be here with you. So this devotional resource that we are using, we're going to be in week 2, if you can see it on there, and I'll send the link out if you don't already have it. But we're going to be in week 2 of the devotion, and the Wednesday of week 2. And the model that they use is from the Faith 5 model. You might be familiar with that. It's a model that people use both at a church setting during classes, and also you can easily use it at home with your own family. And it's really great, accessible for people of all ages, with all levels of understanding of biblical knowledge. So I'm going to be using that tonight. There are 5 steps. I just want to share this with you this first time that we're going through this together. There are 5 steps to this Faith 5 model. The first one is share. You share your highs and lows for the day, for the week. You share something exciting, something a little scary, and just to connect with each other and appreciate what others are experiencing around you. And then you read together. You read a short biblical passage or a short Bible story, and you read it together, and you listen during that reading for what God is trying to tell you in that text, or what you hear in it. And then you talk about it. You talk about where you find hope in that story. You talk about how the people in that story found God and how they responded to God and the ways that they gave thanks to God. And then you pray together. We have a very exciting prayer practice that we're going to be doing together tonight. You pray for each other, for the highs and the lows that each other are experiencing, and whatever else is on your mind. And then you bless each other as the final 5th step. So share, read, talk, pray, bless. So now, without any further ado, I'm going to begin our devotional for this evening. I was worried that you were going to have to see me fiddle with the matches for a long time, so I'm glad that worked in one go. I'll begin with sharing. So I'll share my worst thing first that happened today. My cat, some of you may know that I have a cat. Her name is Navi. She hasn't been feeling very well the last few days. She is actually starting to get better today, but she's been doing a lot of hiding and not wanting to be particularly cuddly, which is sort of sad because right now I want her cuddles while I'm at home. But she is doing better, but she hasn't been feeling very well the last couple of days. So the best thing that has happened to me today, well, this morning I got to eat some delicious homemade blueberry pancakes and bacon. It was really, really good. My mom and my dad are here visiting with us during this time, and so my dad made pancakes, and he makes excellent pancakes. They were very good. But seriously, though, the best thing that happened, I think, was I got a lot of really supportive, loving, kind emails and messages from people in the congregation and even people outside the congregation who have heard these stories that we're having. And these messages from people all over the congregation has just really given me a lot of hope and inspiration, just saying how grateful they all are for this work that we're doing together and how grateful they are that we are continuing to stay together as a faith community. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been pretty hard for me, but hearing all of this and the difference that we're making in your lives and how much hope you are experiencing, it really gives me a lot. So thank you so much. Keep it going. Keep sharing those things with me and with each other. What are the moments of hope and joy that you have experienced in this time? What are some surprising new things that you have learned? I'd really love to hear them. So keep sharing them with me. So yeah. And our reading for today is Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 12. And I've extended it just a couple of other passages because Exodus 3:14 is probably my favorite verse in the entire Bible. So I had to take the opportunity to read it because I love it so much. So I'll read it twice. This is Exodus 3 from the Common English Bible translation. Moses was taking care of the flock for his father-in-law, Jethro, Midian's priest. He led his flock out to the edge of the desert, and he came to God's mountain called Horeb. The Lord's messenger appeared to him in a flame of fire in the middle of a bush. Moses saw that the bush was in flames, but it didn't burn up. Then Moses said to himself, "Let me check out this amazing sight and find out why the bush isn't burning up." When the Lord saw that he was coming to look, God called to him out of the bush, "Moses, Moses." Moses said, "I'm here." Then the Lord said, "Don't come any closer. Take off your sandals, because you are standing on holy ground." He continued, "I am the God of your father, Abraham's God, Isaac's God, and Jacob's God." Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, "I've clearly seen my people oppressed in Egypt. I've heard their cry of injustice because of their slave masters. I know about their pain. I've come down to rescue them from the Egyptians in order to take them out of that land and bring them to a good and broad land, a land that's full of milk and honey, a place where the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites all live. Now the Israelites' cries of injustice have reached me. I've seen just how much the Egyptians have oppressed them. So get going. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I to go to Pharaoh and to bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" God said, "I'll be with you, and this will show you that I'm the one who sent you. After you bring the people out of Egypt, you will come back here and worship God on this mountain." But Moses said to God, "If I now come to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your ancestors has sent me to you,' they are going to ask me, 'What's this God's name?' What am I supposed to say to them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am. So say to the Israelites, 'I am has sent me to you.'" I'll read it again. Moses was taking care of the flock for his father-in-law, Jethro, Midian's priest. He led his flock out to the edge of the desert, and he came to God's mountain called Horeb. The Lord's messenger appeared to him in a flame of fire in the middle of a bush. Moses saw that the bush was in flames, but it didn't burn up. Then Moses said to himself, "Let me check out this amazing sight and find out why the bush isn't burning up." When the Lord saw that he was coming to look, God called to him out of the bush, "Moses, Moses." And Moses said, "I'm here." Then the Lord said, "Don't come any closer. Take off your sandals, because you are standing on holy ground." He continued, "I am the God of your father, Abraham's God, Isaac's God, and Jacob's God." Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, "I've clearly seen my people oppressed in Egypt. I've heard their cry of injustice because of their slave masters. I know about their pain. I've come down to rescue them from the Egyptians in order to take them out of that land and bring them to a good and broad land, a land that's full of milk and honey, a place where the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites all live." Now the Israelites' cries of injustice have reached me. I've seen just how much the Egyptians have oppressed them. So get going. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, "Who am I to go to Pharaoh and to bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" God said, "I'll be with you, and this will show you that I'm the one who sent you. After you bring the people out of Egypt, you will come back here and worship God on this mountain." But Moses said to God, "If I now come to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your ancestors has sent me to you,' they are going to ask me, 'What's this God's name?' What am I supposed to say to them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am. So say to the Israelites, 'I am has sent me to you.'" I mentioned before we started that my very favorite verse in the Bible, is Exodus 3:14. And that's the verse when God says to Moses, "I am who I am. So say to the Israelites, 'I am has sent me to you.'" And I'll give you just a little bit of background. Those of you who are in my Bible study class might have heard me give this explanation before, but in Hebrew, the verbs don't really have tenses, future, past, present. It's all through context that we determine what tense the verbs are in. So when it says, God said to Moses, I am who I am, it could also just as well be, I will be who I will be, and I was who I was. And there is this sense that doesn't really come out in the English so much. There's this sense in that ambiguity of the tense that we're in, that there is this expanseness to God's presence with us, and that God's promise to us to be with us and protect us through all things has always been and always will be. That it was there in the beginning, and it was there with Moses, and it is here now, and it will continue to be always. And then God says that this I am who is also the I am of the future and the I am of the past, that expansive, all-time I am, sent Moses to the people and sends us, continues to send us, and will always send us to do the work that needs to be done to build God's kingdom, that land of milk and honey. And that gives me hope for whatever comes next out of this time together. I think I've mentioned to you several times now just how much hope I take out of these ways of connecting and being with each other that we've either forgotten how to do or taken granted of or just didn't know were possible. And we are building a new community together, and that is going to stick with us. We are going to be changed forever by this. That God who will be who he always was and will continue to be present with us, we are now living through that same time of change. And that same moment when God can always be present with us through everything that is happening. And that gives me hope and promise. I also take some hope out of the portion of this text here where God says to Moses, this is verse 12 that I'm reading from, which was supposed to be the end of our text today, but I added some verses. God said, I will be with you, and this will show you that I'm the one who sent you. After you bring the people out of Egypt, you will come back here and worship God on this mountain. So I think for a lot of us, for me anyway, the first thought that jumps into my head is this reminder that we will come back to each other. We will be in our beloved church building together at some point, or whatever your beloved church space is, but we will come back to each other. We will come back to the spaces and places where we worship, and we will resume that faith community together. We are already resuming that faith community together. But I'm also reminded that for Moses, at this point, this place, Mount Horeb, was a scary place. He was hiding his face from God out of shame, out of fear, and it's a little bit ambiguous in the text. And there is this bush that is on fire, and it is gotta be a strange sight, right? Because this bush that is on fire is speaking to him, and he doesn't know quite what's happening, and he has to take off his sandals and approach, and is told that this is holy ground. This scary space where you don't know quite what is happening is holy ground. And I am reminded out of that even scary, difficult times and places can be holy opportunities for change and transformation. That even the things that we are experiencing right now, as much anger as they are giving us, as much frustration, boredom even maybe, confusion, doubt, anxiety, fear, whatever you're feeling, it's good to feel those feelings. I'm not telling you not to, because you have every right to. But underneath that, God is still there, and God is still working and using this moment and making change. So I'm just reminded about that holiness of change and opportunity. And boy, does that give me a lot of hope. So at this moment, we move to the fourth step of our Faith 5 model, which is pray. So I told you that there's a kind of a fun prayer activity that we're going to be doing today. And if you see in the devotion, there is what they are calling make a s'mores prayer. And I, like you, thought, what is a s'mores prayer? And yes, I am talking about the thing with the graham cracker and the chocolate and the marshmallow that you put together and eat around a campfire. So they have, there is an activity that was put together by Christine V. Hides, and she has these instructions for how to build a s'mores prayer together. So I'm going to build a s'mores prayer with you tonight. I have my marshmallow, I have my chocolate, and I have my graham cracker, and I'm going to, it may not work, but we'll see. I'm going to try to toast my marshmallow over our spiritual flame right here. And I think that the reason why they chose this particular devotion practice tonight was to remember the fire that was burning in this text and how God gives us, speaks to us, spoke to Moses through that flame and continues to speak to us through these things that ignite us and give us joy. So we're going to make our own little imaginary campfire here tonight. So first, you start with the first graham cracker. And with the first graham cracker, you greet God. So let us pray. Mother, Father God, we greet you here and now in this space, and we rejoice in your presence with us. With the chocolate, we remember that God's love is sweet, and we give thanks for all the ways that we see God's love in our lives. God, your love is the sweetness of life. I thank you for giving the ways that you continue to show up as brightness of hope, and the opportunity to explore new practices for prayer and for worship. In the ways that I continue to see people showing up for their neighbors. And the medical teams, first responders, support staff, grocery and restaurant workers, delivery people, cleaning people, and so many more who continue to show up for work every day under new and difficult conditions. In all these selfless acts of love, I see your love, and I sense your guiding hand helping us through the wilderness. And I give you thanks. So now I'm going to try to toast my marshmallow. This may be more symbolic than actual toasting, but let's see how this works here. The marshmallow is meant to remind us that life can get sticky. So we ask God for help. We make mistakes. Sad and scary things happen. We encounter new challenges day by day, challenges that we might not have answers for. But we take hope in the promise that God will stick with us, like gooey, melted marshmallows on our fingers. With the marshmallow, we ask for God to watch over particular people and problems. Oh, it's getting a little golden. God, I ask for healing for the world. Not just from COVID-19, but from the anxiety and panic that we are now feeling. From the blaming and arguing when we should be supporting. From the financial difficulties so many of us are facing and the continuing repercussions of an economic shutdown. And from our indifference, when in the past so many of your children have faced similar anxiety, isolation, fear, and danger, whether it was from the threat of violence, from the AIDS pandemic, widespread poverty, civil war, religious persecution, or so many others. It was all too easy then for us to turn a blind eye and say, thank God that isn't us. And now as a global people, we are united against a common enemy like perhaps never before. And I pray that this brings us one step closer to empathy for our international neighbors. And now with the final graham cracker, we say amen. Amen. And now let us do our final blessing. Sorry. This blessing was sent to me by one of you, one of the many bright moments in my day, and it was so beautiful I just had to share it. So thank you to Karen who sent this to me. This comes from the Reverend Lee Allison Pakzula. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who is the pastor at the Wellspring congregation in Arizona. Blessed are the elderly and the immunocompromised. Blessed are the fearful, the anxious and irritable. Blessed are the ones who use humor to get by, the ones who could use a vacation anyway, the ones who fear for their life. Blessed are the ones who are sick of it, all the flawed logic, the security theater. Blessed are the ones who cry out, this is why we need a safety net, a kinder society, a new world. Blessed are the healthcare workers, the administrators catching heat for every decision, the messengers with no power over the message. Blessed are the sad and the lonely. Blessed are the healthy and the sick. the well and the unwell. Blessed are all of us just trying to do our best. Blessed are those who stay kind and clear, who keep their eyes open to each other. Blessed is our family and neighbor. Blessed are we all. Blessed are we all. Blessed are we all. And now I bid you to go in peace. I hope that you can use this devotional practice in the future. Again, I'll make this available. It's on our Facebook, and I'll make sure there's a link to it in the weekly bread as well that we'll send out tomorrow. And for now, I just wish you a good night and many blessings to you all.